Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri, and since 2016, Monica Shimonik has been coaching moms and dads as they navigate through the treacherous waters of the family law racket. Aside from workshops, which helps with specific problems, her 12-week signature course, The Best Interest of the Parent, uses a 4-quadrant model to create a robust healing and empowerment system so that you control the narrative in your life, not the state. It's an excellent program, and I wish I would have taken that when I was going through my stuff. Her website is included in the podcast notes. Use coupon code SLAMTHEGAVEL to get 10% off her course. Right now, I have Colleen Murray, and she is owner of Victor's Crown Christian Counseling Center. She is a mom with a husband and 3 kids. She is a licensed professional counselor, and she has philosophy in the mental health counseling. Also, let me see here. We have a lot of questions for you. As how did you get into all of this?
Oh, well, welcome, and thank you for having me here. I really appreciate that today, and I'm honored to be on your show and talking to your guests today. How I got involved with, I specialize in high conflict custody, high conflict divorce cases. And how I got involved with that was my dissertation is in trauma and how domestic violence affects children and how we as a society help them when they go to domestic violence shelters. And what I found out is, it doesn't really help very much because the philosophy at behavior at domestic violence shelters is based on the feminist theory, and so it's hard to empower children that are disempowered by their relationships anyway because they're too little, right?
Right.
So I found that there were some lacking things there, and in that same vein of trauma and children, I went and I worked for a little while at the CPS for Children's Protective Services for Missouri. And I worked there as a case manager for a little while. I was finishing some of my graduate work. And in that, I found that, a lot of people were overtaxed and there were just so many cases. And so I had the opportunity to work with them. And then I opened my own center. And I had this mom come in one day, and she was looking for a counselor for her daughter. And I said, sure, great, no problem. And she sat in did an initial intake, and she mentioned that she was going through a divorce, and that was really stressing out her daughter. And I said, oh, okay, all right. Well, before we can get started, I'll need to get Dad's, information so I can get his approval because she's under the age of consent. And so, so she had already written down some of his information on the paper, and she kind of hesitated a little bit. And I thought that was kind of strange, but okay. And so, about 2 days later, she left. I never did see the daughter, during the initial intake because I didn't have permission from the father to do that. And, I'm very big on ethics. And so I said, okay. And the father called me a couple of days later and he said, I absolutely want you to see my daughter. I said, okay, great. So they ended up coming in and the child was completely, in a state of anxiety that I had never seen in a child before, ever.
Aww.
And wouldn't go into the room and was screaming and crying and having, for all intents and purposes, a panic attack. And I had never seen this before. and a child. And so they left, and I quickly Googled, because, why would child not want to see parent panic attack? Something very generic like this. And that popped a word I had never seen before. Now, I had started my undergrad in 1993. I graduated and went into the military for 10 years. And then I went back and finished my my graduate and my doctoral program. And I graduated, I received my doctorate in 2016. And in all that time, I had never heard of the word parental alienation. I had just never heard of it. And so, but that's the word that popped up. And I said, that's a new beast. I've never heard of that.
Right.
And I started to do some research on it. And I ordered books and I read them, and I started writing to the authors of the books, and I started emailing them. And one of the authors happened to be Amy Baker.
Oh.
And so I connected with her, and she became my mentor.
Oh, that's nice.
But it was a blessing. But it was very alarming to me as I dug deeper into it, and I found out more about parental alienation and the psychological abuse that goes along with it, that even though I had done my dissertation in trauma, and even though it was focused on domestic violence, out of all the articles that I read, all the research that I read, you would have thought out of all of those, I would have come across something that said parental alienation. But I didn't. I never came across anything that said that. And it was very alarming, and it was very concerning to me. I have gone on to become a professor at Drury University, and I will tell you that every student that comes through my class hears about it and knows about it by the time they leave.
Oh, that's good. Everyone needs to be educated on this. A lot of people don't know this exists.
Oh, that's true. I find that a lot, that a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's not that they haven't seen it, though, right? They've seen it, they just don't know what it is. Like when I was seeing it, because I had worked in foster care and because I had done my dissertation in trauma, I hadn't ever seen a child who had been, abused physically, sexually by their parents, refuse to see their parents. I hadn't seen that before. And so I didn't understand what I was really seeing in that moment.
Why is this not regularly taught in the undergrad or grad school? That's
a really good question. And I wish I had a good answer for that, but unfortunately I don't. I have had some conversations with, as I have looked into and been part of different groups for legislation purposes or helping to develop training for different programs. That is something that's hard. It's hard for people to, I've heard that it's hard for people to define, it's hard for people to validate or to see, and they're just not educated on the PAR-Q that's out there, the assessment that Bill Barnett helped to bring about, and all of the research that's been done by Amy Baker and Dr. Miller, Dr. Stephen Miller, and I just I find it interesting that a lot of people haven't seen these, and so it's about educating people, about letting them see. As part of my story, I'm also I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and so one of the things that I understand because I have had conversations with people in the domestic violence arena, I do understand that it's hard when you have an active domestic violence case, and so and there's coercion in that, right? And so I do understand the concern of the domestic violence groups, and the Domestic Violence Society. Again, I, having been there myself, I understand, but I think that we need to have some balance, because just because some people commit domestic violence doesn't mean that all children who refuse to see their parents are because there has been some domestic violence. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. Because it seems like what I'm getting is that with domestic violence, if a woman says that in court, then the father right away jumps to parental alienation, and then they give the child over to the father, hence the abuser.
That can happen. That can happen, and men can say domestic violence too. Just as there's a large percentage of men that are victims of domestic violence. So just if somebody says there's domestic violence, whichever the parent says it first, right? It may be true, it may not be true, but we have to investigate it. We can't just automatically assume that it is true, right? And we can't automatically assume that it's not true. So we have to do the investigation, and we have to, keep our minds open to the idea that there's maybe some alternate hypothesis too. The alternate hypothesis might be that this might be a PA case.
Do you think the judges are, or enough judges are aware of all of this?
Well, I don't know if I could say that with any authority, because I haven't surveyed every judge, but I think that in a general consensus, I think that you would find that people within the community that work in this field would say that there's a lot of untrained judges and trained in this area. There's a lot of judges who are untrained in this area. And just like with anything else, I just think it needs to be something that they train on, like any other new thing that although it's not a new phenomena, but a new component to their decision-making process. They just have to have some more information about it. So a lot of when we're talking about how do we move forward with legislation and how can we stop this from happening, one of the things that has been brought up on the committees that I'm on is can we mandate training for this, right? And what would that look like, and so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. There should be training. I know that these judges have to get credits every. I don't know if it's every year or every 2 years. They've got to take these courses. I just don't know if parental alienation is one of them.
Yeah, well, I don't profess to know that either. I know that again, on the committees that I've been on, that is one of the things that we have talked about, because on those committees in those areas or those states, it's currently not a requirement, right? So I couldn't say it's for all the states, but for a number of them, it's not a requirement right now. For example, a couple of years ago, the state of Missouri, it was probably 4, maybe 6 years ago, lose track of time. So 4 or 6 years ago, it became a requirement for licensed professional counselors in the state of Missouri to take additional training on suicide before we could get our license renewed, right? So maybe it's something that, like you just said, like they, as a mandatory requirement for a CEU to take, so that they can get their license renewed, right?
It's just very difficult. It's just it's like a touchy subject when someone brings up, like domestic violence, and then parental alienation comes into it, and it's people argue over this.
Sure.
Hmm.
I don't think that we need to argue over it. I just think we need to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more information we have, the the better we can make better decisions we can make about it one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Also, right. And I always say there can be parental alienation outside the courtroom. I mean, you can be long since divorced and have your kids
mm-hmm.
be turned on you, brainwashed, and it can happen outside of a courtroom.
Well, sure, yeah. Working with a lot of high conflict custody, high conflict divorce cases, like anything in life, there's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Some people alienate their kids, call them mildly alienated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuff that they do that we don't even think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
This phenomena that came about, I don't know when this came about, but I remember maybe a decade ago, the first time I heard it was, there's these things called divorce parties. Have you heard of these things?
No.
Like, yes, when you get a divorce, there's this idea that we have a party about our divorce, like just like you have a shower or whatever else, like a, that may seem like something, pretty, I don't know, playful or whatever, thank goodness I'm rid of them or whatever. But, if you have a child, it's not appropriate for your child to go to your divorce party.
Exactly.
Right? But they may not be thinking about it that way, right? They may not be thinking, well, I'm trying to get my child to hate this other person. They're not even thinking about it like that. I think sometimes people do things and they don't, it doesn't come, they don't think it all the way through, or they don't mean for it. There's no intent for it to be that way, but it is that way. In let's see, Desperate Housewives, there was a one of the shows in Desperate Housewives. It's a perfect alienation scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so it comes across so calm and so acceptable. I love foreign films, and I was watching a Russian film not that long ago, and there is some alienation behavior in that right at the beginning. The mom and the dad, they're divorced, and the mom comes up and she says, "What are you doing? I've been waiting in the car. Get in the car." And the son's like, "I want to, I asked to stay longer." And then the next scene is the boy is getting something out of the car, and he sees a big present in the back, and the boy says, "Oh, can I have that?" And the father says, "No, that's not for you." And the mother turns him around and says, "I told you, he has another family now." Like all of that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But it's showing up in our TV shows, in our sitcoms, in our docudramas, in our movies as socially acceptable behavior. And so if you're not looking for it, if you're not thinking about it, it's happening all around us, and we're becoming numb to the idea that that it's okay to say a snide remark, or another show that I saw, it's called Vice Principal. Another show. There's a perfect scene in there where there's alienation happening, and it's if I wasn't aware of it, I might not see it. I just might see it as the quote unquote typical divorced parents being snarky with each other and having a bad co-parenting relationship, and putting the kid in the middle. But all of that wears on a child, and so I think sometimes there's the mild things that happen, and then there's the blatant things that happen. There's the the mom or the dad asking the kid to take pictures in the parent's house, or, they set up a false Facebook account and Facebook stalk them, or, or they tell the kid that, they cry over the divorce, and they, even though the child may be with the parent for, week on, week off, or every other weekend or whatever, the parent waits until the child gets home to be crying and falling apart, or even talking about, the other parent because they think the child's upstairs and asleep. I have kids tell me all the time, Miss Colleen, I snuck downstairs and I was behind the sofa. Right? Or I snuck downstairs and I waited in the hallway and I heard my dad and my mom talking on the phone. That's what they do. They want to know what's going on. Who wouldn't want to know what's going on?
Right.
Suddenly your whole world is falling apart. Who wouldn't want to know what's going on? So, there's the little things that seem benign, but when you add them all up, they seem like a lot. And then there's the blatant and deliberate things that happen, if somebody's really an active alienator, right? So I think sometimes it's easy to miss because people disregard it as, typical divorce behavior, right?
Right. And again, it's like a norm.
Sure, to some extent. Some of the mild stuff may come across as, again, nobody may think a divorce party is, whoever thought of that phenomenon, but nobody is thinking I'm doing that to alienate my kid, but in essence, you're going to.
Right. I did not have a divorce party. I never even thought of that. Yeah, because I think I've heard of those back when I was getting divorced, but I just never thought of that. Just never entered my mind. I don't know, because it's such a bad situation. It's hard on the kids.
Sure. But not everybody thinks of it that way.
Yeah. Well, they should.
Sure. And so, I think going back to the training, I think an awareness. I think that if, again, being a survivor of domestic abuse, and I don't want anyone to think that my abuse was just some mild abuse. I understand having a gun to your head and having the trigger pulls. Like, I understand the violence that can happen in your home, right? And the fear of your life being taken. I totally understand that. So I do not take it lightly. Right. I think that there can be a balance, though.
There should be a balance, and you're right. And these lawyers and judges have to be educated enough to understand that and not jump the gun on anything.
Yeah, in any direction, I think.
Right. They jump to these conclusions before you even get in there into that courtroom, and they I don't know, they've just got to slow down.
Well, I think some people might disagree with you on the slowing down. Some people might say it takes too long anyways.
Right. Well, I
right?
mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I know things get dragged out and there's got to be a faster resolution, but I guess what I'm trying to say is they've got to slow down on these jumping to conclusions so quickly that they are tearing a family apart.
Sure. I think that just more information, the more informed you are, the better decisions you can make. Right.
Right. And what do you think of a call to action for your audience to make changes in their states? People often wonder what to do. People say, well, people are just talking about it and nothing's happening. What can the audience do to help make changes and get progress going?
Sure. So one of the things that people can do is, instead of, and I don't think this happens with everybody, but I think that there may be enough on one side or the other that the conflict continues. Go to your state domestic violence group, right? And talk to them. Find out what their needs are and their concerns are, and what is it about PA that makes them, kind of get nervous about children ending up with abusers, and share your stories with them, and maybe through the sharing there can be a commonality that you can find where the truth of the matter is, and I think this is true. Now, what both sides really care about is is that, children and women and men can be in relationships that are healthy and whole, and they are there as an agency to help enforce or to help provide information so that people aren't getting hurt. So just talk to them, find out what they do and don't know. They can look on and they can look on Legiscan. It's legiscan.com.
Okay.
You can look there. That'll show you legislation that's going on in your state.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even set some notifications to track bills about any bills that you see that might look like bills that would address things with equal shared custody or PA or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coercion. But you'll have to do they would have to do some searches, like for custody, parental alienation, coercive control, and they can find those bills that have those wordings in it, and then they can kind of track them. And once they look at the bills, they can become aware of, who's presenting the bill, who's supporting the bill. They can make phone calls to their local state representatives and senators and talk to them. They can contact the committees. They can see if they can go and submit their testimony. They can write like a one-page testimony and submit it, and see if they can go and be part of that process. So those are some things that they can do to make a change. Again, they can become part of the process to make some significant and substantial changes. We just recently had a bill get passed in Florida, and all of those are grassroots organizations that are making these things happen.
It's all this grassroots and people getting together and just continuing to spread the word. A lot of people don't know any of this. I mean, some people don't even know what domestic violence is, much less parental alienation. So, I mean, that's why you and I are here trying to educate people. A lot of people just don't know, and our kids are paying dearly for it.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna just. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with you. I think that is true. I know even when I was, I go and I tell my testimony at high schools about my domestic violence and domestic abuse, and I was the first female to graduate from college in my family. I was an officer in the United States Army, and I could not keep myself safe in my own home on Fridays and Saturday nights. And if back then you had asked me if I knew getting beat up and eventually having a gun to my head was not cool and not okay. Mm-mm. But if you had said to me that's domestic violence, I would have looked at you and said, "What are you talking about?" I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what was happening to me. I had no idea what that was.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And I think it's the same for some people in situations of parental alienation. They don't know what's happening until it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And they find themselves in it.
Right. Because it's so insidious and you don't realize it's happening until it's happened, and you're just in shock.
Sure. No, not every alienator is an aggressive alienator. Like I said, the parent who has the divorce party, or the parent who talks about, the other parent what an idiot they are, or, how dumb they are, or they're always late, blah, 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 blah. They're not, those people aren't intentionally alienating some of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they
Right.
are, because they're not educated either.
Definitely.
They're just saying what comes to, I think on some level in our society, it's good to say what's on your mind, but I also think that we need to regulate what we say, right? So, and when I work with parents, I tell them that, and I say, well, when your 5-year-old asks you where babies come from, you give them a whole story about storks or angels or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when your 17-year-old asks you, that's a science, project. That's an entirely different story now. Now we're talking about sperm and eggs and
right.
So it's okay. I think it's okay to tell people things, but I think we have to, kind of pace ourselves on it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And to go back to that House bill that was passed in Florida, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. It's House Bill 241.
Yes.
Okay. And it is domestic violence injunctions. So it authorizes the court to take certain actions regarding care, possession, and it just keeps going. It explains that. So it's House Bill 241 that was passed in March 10th of 2020.
That's one. There was another one that was just passed. Hold on one second. Caveat. So there's been a couple on coercive control that the parental alienation community has really taken that foundation and moved forward with it.
Okay.
There was one that was just hold on one second.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to make you dig for it.
Oh, nope, you're fine. It was just passed. It was probably passed just a couple of weeks ago, I want to say. Let me just look.
Let me see here. I know there. Let me see. There was a bill action for July 12th to end human trafficking, but I don't know if that was passed. It doesn't seem like it was yet.
Here.
I'm sorry to ask.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. It's the Florida Parents' Rights Bill. Okay. And it was just passed. I'm just trying to see when it was passed. That's like in June or July 1st. Anyway. But there is a, if your audience looked up Parental Rights Florida, so parentalrightsfl.org, they'll be able to find the guide for it, and how it's helping. So, and it basically, the bill is pointing out that each parent has a right for education and care and the upbringing of children, and the right to enroll children in public school, and to have access to the kids' records. And you would think all that goes without saying, I'm sure, but
right.
But just making sure that all parents have all access to their health care and their school.
Well, that's good. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you found it? Okay.
Yeah, actually, it is saying House Bill 241, Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yeah, they added on to it, but I wanted to make sure you understand that it was passed before 2020. It just fully got passed.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it says 2021, but there's no date as to when was passed,
Yeah.
but at least there's progress being
Yeah.
made. Oh, good.
Yep. Yep.
What was it like studying with Dr. Amy Baker?
So my three mentors are Amy Baker, Linda Gottlieb, and Steve Miller. So I feel like I hit the trifecta.
You did. You sure did.
Right. So blessed. It feels very blessed. I am very blessed.
Oh, wow. So you had to probably write, obviously, a dissertation and everything. And so did they mentor you in that?
No, I had already finished my doctorate
Okay.
when I think the first time I heard of PA was, I want to say it was it was probably the late spring, early summer of 2015. That's the first time I'd ever heard that word.
Okay.
Which, considering I started going to undergrad school in 1993, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like people haven't really well, they've recently started talking about it in around that 2015 area.
Yeah, I think it was reaching a more heightened awareness, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but it seems like a lot. It seems like there was kind of this upswing in information. Before that, there was a information happening, but it seemed to be kind of trickling along. But it seems to have done this huge upswing in the last several years, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a symposium coming up in October. What's going on?
Sure. So in October, there's going to be a symposium that's going to be put on by Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, and it's how to cope with the emptiness. And the audience for that is people that are having a hard time dealing with the grief of losing their children. Right? I mean,
right.
It's very hard. The grief is real, and it's hard to reconcile it because they're still alive, right?
Right.
So it's going to be geared toward helping people deal with their grief. It is currently going to be in person, unless something substantial changes, and it's going to be October 15th through October 16th.
Okay. And where's that going to take place?
Sure, that's going to be in Durham, North Carolina. And Dr. Steve Miller will be there. Linda Gottlieb will be there. Dr. John Killinger will be there. Dr. Mark Mosk will be there. Dr. Kornbluth will be there. Dr. Carol Golly will be there. I will be there. I'll be the moderator.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
And now, so we're really, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying we're really looking forward to just meeting people and meeting the community and really helping people in the community.
There's a lot of, I hate to refer to Facebook, but there's a lot of parents suffering and grieving over children they're walking around but the children don't want anything to do with them.
Sure.
And it's good you're having this symposium. How did you decide when did you decide to put this together?
Well, I didn't put this together.
Oh.
So it's a big project. So Elaine Cobb and Dr. Stephen Miller. Dr. Stephen Miller is the director, and Elaine Cobb is helping coordinate it, and Steel Partners is sponsoring it. So Yeah, I'm just the moderator. I'm just showing up, and I'm the comic relief in between, and I will be putting on. I will have be putting on some information there myself, but no, I think that I would not take credit for putting this together. It's far too big of a project.
Yeah, it sounds like a very intense project. How can parents get a hold of, to go to this?
Sure. If they go to Family Access, fightingforchildren'srights.com, that's Family Access, fightingforchildren'srights.com. You'll be able to go there and see that there's an event calendar, and it's an upcoming event, and you can click on that and it'll bring you to it, and you can just click on there and register, and that'll be great. I think there's going to be, I know there's going to be a lot of great information that is going to truly help people as they deal with this, and offer, I think they'll be able to meet with a community of other like-minded people that are also struggling with the same things, and two, they'll be able to meet with experts in the field that truly understand the things that they are going through. Some of the people that are there are alienated. Some of the speakers are. And so, they don't just, it's like me when I work with domestic violence survivors. I tell them, I'm not just telling you this from a book. I also understand from a very real perspective also. So I think that's always nice when somebody's not just telling you from a book, but they're also telling you from, like, your walk is not my walk, but I do have a mutual understanding. And I think that really comes across will come across in some of the presentations. And I think that people will leave. I know that people are going to leave with some great tools that are really going to help them, that they can use and make connections with other people so that they can stay connected. Not to talk about, not just to keep talking about the bad parts, but to encourage one another and to lean on each other during these times when sometimes it becomes overbearing, birthdays or Christmas or Mother's Day or Father's Day.
And it's just very difficult. The holidays are just so hard for people.
Sure.
Well, will this be recorded so people can have access to it afterwards?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had an answer.
That's okay.
I don't know if we're going to do. We had a conference back in the beginning of May, the middle of May. Sorry, 2020 really messed me up. I've lost the whole year in my head.
Oh, me too. So. I don't feel bad.
So we recently had a conference, and that was all recorded. We did a virtual conference, and that was completely recorded. So people can also get those recordings on the site also. And the site, Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, also has monthly presentations. We used to do them via like a conference call, but now we're doing them via Zoom. So you'll be able to see the expert, you'll be able to look at PowerPoint. So I think that really brings in some more personal, it's not just somebody on the phone. You'll actually get to see that the expert presenting once a month. And some of the monthly calls or the monthly trainings are 1 hour or they're 2 hours. Right? And all of those are free. There's no charge. Every single expert that participates in that donates their time to do that, and all that information is on the site.
Oh, that's good. Now, as far as life now, how is life for you right now?
In what way?
Oh, just working and in your work, are you writing like a book or anything going on?
So, no. Although I have a couple of people that wish I would write a book.
Mhm.
No, there's so much work to do. There's so much work to do. I'm presenting and I am assisting with legislation and with writing recommendations for training.
Mhm.
But other than that, and I still have an active client base. I see anywhere from 4 to 5 clients a day.
Mhm.
So and about 75% of our client load is high conflict, custody divorces
Mm.
and custody cases, and so those can be really draining at the end of the day. So
Definitely.
um, yeah, so and I like to take life just one little step at a time, but maybe that's somewhere in my future. I did do over the 2020, I did do some research with Amy Baker, and so that got published. So, um, so we'll see if I can fit anything else in.
Well, maybe down the road later, while you're doing all of this great work, who knows, maybe 4 years from now, you'll be writing, putting things together.
Sure. Yep. I seem to always be doing something, so I'm sure that's on my list of things to do at some point. I really am quite content to do the work and let other people write, but
Mhm.
I also know that is something that benefits everybody when those that are doing the work share. When I was in the military, I helped to write concepts, team and equipment concepts for Homeland Security things. So so I know that those who do the work in the field are really important for their voices to be heard. Um, so so maybe that'll be on there sometime in the future.
Mhm. Well, is there any way, if people want to contact you,
Mm-hmm.
is there a website that they can reach you at?
Yep, sure. So my website is Victor's, VICTORS hyphen or dash, however you think about it, crown, CROWN.com. That's Victor's hyphen crown.com.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, people may want to contact you. Um,
Sure.
I'd like to have you on as a return guest as well, maybe after the symposium, and let us know how all that went too.
Sure, that'd be great. I'd be happy to.
Oh, great, because we have to spread the word. We have to, keep educating. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, no, I just really want to encourage your audience to know that they're not alone, that there are people out there fighting with and for them, and that I highly encourage everybody to do what they can when they can,
Mm-hmm.
as much as they can. So, if they can get involved by going to a symposium and meeting people and connecting other people up, or a conference, meeting people and connecting other people up, then do that. If they can get involved on their local level by going to, the state domestic violence group and chatting with them, in an informational way, then do that. If they can get involved in a legislative way by doing some of the work with the state representatives and the senators, then do that. One of the things that keeps people engaged, or one of the things that keeps people alive, is by having a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man without a vision will die. So if they find something, I know that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I have clients that their stories break my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the pain of the children when they come, and I know it's hard, but sitting around isn't making it easier.
Mm-hmm.
And getting involved isn't putting it aside. Getting involved is actively moving towards a better tomorrow, if not for them, in their case, maybe for their grandchildren or somebody else's children.
Well, I often say, you know, advocacy chooses you. And with what you had gone through with domestic violence, this has led you to all of this, you know, helping people.
Yeah, I would have never thought that. I didn't. If you had asked me when I was a kid how I thought life was going to go, I would have told you I'm just going to be a mom.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
it.
And sometimes our lives just don't turn out like that, but it just, some people, you know, we go through what we go through, even myself, and here we are, you know, advocacy has chosen me as well. I didn't go looking for it.
Yeah, I promise you, when I did my dissertation, I really did think I was just going to work with women in domestic violence shelters for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad to have you on, Dr. Murray, and I'll have you back
thank
on.
you.
Slam,
Okay.
yeah, Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Join us again in the future with Dr. Murray and other guests. Thank you so much.
Thank you.